Oh, what's that? You thought you were in the clear. You thought you could build with the straw bed because, you know, it perfectly lines up now, right? Well, that's where you're wrong, friend. The straw bed doesn't line up at all. Actually, in fact, it's exact opposite still. Yay, good luck getting a good night's worth of sleep knowing that fact. So earlier this week, Mojang dropped a pretty gigantic snapshot with so much technical information that some of the specific changes, well, they've begun to get a little bit muddy, lost in the details. Tap that like button. Today we are going for over 2, 3, 4, 5 likes. And let's take a look at the campsite overhaul that was undersold, the massive end island generation update, and a couple of new clues that might point towards a new boss. Oh man, now the changelog. Not to be that guy, but I have completely mogged the changelog right here. Minor tweaks to abandoned camp structures. This undersells what has been changed to a severe level. I mean, it's that, or these things were changed in an earlier snapshot, and we just totally, completely missed it. Either way, no matter what, since we last took our deep dive into every single piece of the structure, Mojang has changed every single piece of the structure. Now, you may remember that a couple of weeks ago, when the tents were updated, we took a look at the tent sites and basically what has changed about them. Inside of this snapshot, as far as I can tell, every single tent is basically unchanged, at least for the most part. The changes aren't there, no. Instead, they are at, honestly, the part of the structure that is a little bit more interesting. At least to me, in my opinion. So we already know it. A big piece of this week's snapshot was one brand new variant for all 18 biomes of these campsites. I placed them all down, we took a look at them in-game, and found out that every single site here, or just about every single new one, has a secret chest inside of it somewhere. A secret chest under the jigsaw block right there. A secret chest is happening not every time, but almost every time inside of this campsite. AKA, they have significantly buffed these campsites. If you can remember, we have 3 different loot pools inside of an abandoned campsite. We've got barrel loot, which is like the worst. Then we've got chest loot, which is like a little bit better, still not overpowered or anything. And then finally, we've got copper loot, which is where you will find the best treasure out of everything. Pretty useful early game. When I was taking a look at these structures, trying to find out just what might have changed, I went through and started updating them and then realized that just about every single structure here has been changed. The trees, they have almost all been removed. Instead, just like we found out when we took a look at the tents, the trees inside of the structures previously, they have been replaced with jigsaw block opportunities. So this one, for example, it's got 4 jigsaw blocks. Those are 4 chances for a cherry blossom tree to generate, but I do not believe the tree will necessarily always generate. That will mean that we have a couple of different combinations of this exact campsite. Maybe one with 3 trees, one with 2 trees, and so on. On top of that, if a tree generates, it is not guaranteed to always generate in the exact same shape, which is going to mean that these campsites, with the removal of the dedicated trees, well, they actually just got even more variance in a sense, because trees can generate, and then can generate in different shapes as well. Another thing that I have been noticing in our specific brand new biome campsites is the appearance of copper chests, not only inside of that 4th new variant, but inside of some of these other random variants. They have added more copper chests to the structure. Now, it seems like in this structure, almost across the board, we have a little bit of a secret or a trick, something to keep in mind here. Gravel. Gravel is popping up in more structures, more variants of it, than it was before. What gravel means, not every single time, as we can see here, but oftentimes, gravel is a signifier that, hey, wait, maybe you should try and dig under the ground here, because there could be something secret down below. Here's another example of what I'm saying. I mean, this one's kind of obvious, right? Because you would just look at the path block and notice it. But if you see gravel in an abandoned campsite, pull out your shovel and dig out. The chest will almost always only be 1 or 2 blocks under the ground, but there might be a chest, and if there is a chest, it's going to be a copper one with a little bit of that better loot. Another thing that has changed pretty much across the board with every single biome variant of campsite here is the fact that they are a little bit smaller, but not necessarily by the size of the bounding box. For the most part, they didn't change that in any of the variants. Instead, it's what's actually inside of the campsite. Previously, if you can remember, there were like a big 10 by 10 square of flat land. Now these campsites, they have been way more minimized to just be like path blocks, couple of dirt blocks here, and then whatever feature is happening inside of the site. So, for example, I don't know if it's going to happen, but I didn't update this one on purpose here. It's a simple wooded Badlands campsite, a lot of sand, a little bit of details. If I go in here and remove this version of the campsite and then go ahead and tap on the structure block and load it, well, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Instead of having guaranteed sand all over the place now, the developers have removed that in order to make these campsites blend in with the terrain around it a little bit better. The removal of these extra blocks, it doesn't say buff or nerf the campsites. Instead, it helps them blend in a little bit more, and it also is doing a good job of making just about every single campsite variation feel a little bit more hilly than it was before. But I've got a tragedy. Remember how when we took a look at these campsites initially, there was quite a bit of clues pointing towards archaeology being in the structure. For example, this one, it had like terracotta sitting on the ground here and then sus gravel. I think they removed it from the update, guys. There was another biome variant. It was somewhere over here. I think it might have been this one specifically that had even more terracotta, and it's gone. All of the terracotta that was sitting right here before is now fully removed, man. Dude, this is so sad. In the Snapshot video, I talked about how there is more gravel, and yes, that is true. There's more gravel across the board on these campsites, but any sign that we might have had archaeology being added to the structure before, the terracotta and things like that, it has now been fully removed. I don't know. And then I got to thinking about the structure, and the developers have now added in copper chests, like way more to every single campsite variant. Maybe they decided archaeology was not a fit for the structure after all, or just they didn't have time to implement it, so they decided to put more rare loot chests in the structure in place of it. So that's definitely a little bit tragic. Now, across the board, a couple of other things that I have noticed changing here. When we have cobwebs, sometimes there are less cobwebs, other times there are slightly more. Probably the coolest single campsite of them all, the one with the resin blocks and the creaking heart exposed. This thing still exists, so that's good. And oddly enough, there are some campsites that still preserve their exact trees, which will mean that these jungle ones here, they're going to be basically the same every single time. Channel members, I'm going to drop a new world download of this world right here with all of the campsite stuff as well as some of my other tests going on. Smash that join button right now, right here today, and then slide over to the community tab after the video. But another portion of the structure where honestly it's all W's, man, are the generic variants of the campsite. So every single biome now, it has 4 dedicated campsites and then 10 tents. But then there are 45 generic campsite variants that could pop up for every single biome as well, leading to each biome campsite, when it comes to the campsite half, having 49 possibilities. And this is where Mojang has gone ahead and redone a lot of stuff here, making it way better. We have way more gravel in here. In fact, here's a screenshot, kind of representative of how these things were looking before. That was pretty plain and sparse, like definitely unfinished feeling. Well, now we have a whole lot more interest going on. Like, look at this big gravel road that is happening in here, leading over to some cushions and a campfire, dude. It's so cool. I have noticed in many of these variants, copper chests again, they are popping up way more commonly than they were before. They have made it so the loot that you find in this structure is going to be significantly better almost every single time. Now, of these generic campsites, we got 15 for every single one. We have a default barrel site. This is like the worst one. A default chest one. This is getting a little bit better. And then these ones, which are really cool, called default special. The special variants is where we get some of the most interesting storytelling going on out of all of them. Take a look at this one. We've got a little crack in the ground with a copper golem. We actually have quite a bit of rocks going on inside of these campsites too. I wonder if Mojang would ever come back around to the game and add boulders into more biomes. The hay bales right here, they hide a copper chest, which is cool. And then a couple of nice looking pond variants that have been remodeled too. It's all about the details with these campsites, man. You need to take a look at the edge of the path blocks and then wait a second. This one right here, or these two, these look like mine shafts, except kind of exposed on the surface. We can see a copper chest down there in that one. And then same thing, this one's a little bit different, but we've got a copper chest down there down low. This one actually has a double chest that will generate as well. I don't know, I might be wrong on this one, but is this not one of the only times that a double chest with loot randomized will generate in the game? That's kind of cool. Then we've got our simple farm site variants. Those are all pretty cool. And then finally, last but not least, one more weird mineshaft campsite. It all got me thinking, man, it would be really cool if the campsite had like increased odds to have a mineshaft down below it. Like people were camping out and actually excavating. So yeah, whether it happened this week or in a previous week and we just missed it completely, the abandoned campsite structure, it has been completely overhauled actually. The end update in the snapshot, dude, it's actually kind of crazy, man. So I want to show you this. This is how the end generates currently. We have our central area, the central end island would be right at the middle, and then we have a big gap of about 1,000 blocks, and then we have the outer end that begins generating. Now, if you didn't know, if you were to move out and continue exploring, before too long, the end islands, well, bam, basically, we get end islands that begin to generate in a large ring. This first cluster is like a radius of like 360,000 blocks. Then we have a random area in the game that if you go out and try and explore it, there's just nothing. Then after a certain number of blocks, a new ring begins, but it's smaller, and so on and so on and so on, until eventually the rings just stop. These end void rings have been a major part of Minecraft and have existed in the game since 2018. You can see it here on Chunk Base. You can't zoom out any farther right here, but we can see that there's all of these end island clusters. This is what it looks like fully zoomed out, and then all of a sudden, just nothing. And then if I keep going, eventually something begins again. It's weird. Jump into Minecraft Snapshot 26.3, number 4, so one from 2 weeks ago. The seed I am using here is seed 1. After some time later, because it's a ring, my math was a little off, 370,000, but here we can see it happening. At 370,000, we can see this very odd border generating, and this island, in fact, it's like completely cut off right here, dude. It's like, it started generating, but then it said, oh, wait, hold on a second. No. Now we have like 1,000,000 blocks of void, and then eventually end islands in their normal pattern will begin again. But in the latest snapshot, this is what we talked about in snapshot video 1, change to the end outer islands. Well, in a discovery that I first saw Mooing Cow Milk make, a big shout out, I'll link the original video down below. The end rings are gone. Here's how we're going to do it. We're going to take this exact number right here and teleport myself over to it. Snapshot number 4, we get a big border. Now we recreate the exact same world in snapshot 6. I'm making our way downtown over to the end. And then inside of the dimension, sending myself to that exact same location. This was the part of the island that was generating before, and now, oh my gosh, the end, it actually continues generating out here. There's a new end gateway. We are going to be able to find end cities in this area that would not have ever generated before. And of course, a million trillion Enderman, chorus things, and blocks too out here. The end, it has now actually been significantly changed. And end island ring generation is now a thing of the past. Instead, replaced by that, it's just more continuous islands out until about 30 million blocks. Then eventually, I believe all end terrain generation will cease entirely. So technically, in a sense, they've added more end cities and more end features into the game here, but you're already 370,000 blocks out. You probably found an end city or two by now. And if you didn't, well, I'm sorry. Next up, speaking of exploration, we've got a weird new distance to point feature. This has been added in the newest snapshot. It is called distance to point, and it will compute the distance to a fixed point inside of the world. So let's say maybe a specific structure, you can now use distance to point to compute exactly how far you are from that place. Now, I do not believe this is currently used in-game, but I almost wonder if we're looking at a potential compass rework or maybe some sort of new structure where a distance-to-point thing will pop up on the screen. Maybe, just maybe even here, going out on a limb, maybe the structure is very major, something happens in your world, and then distance-to-point pops up because you need to get over to wherever that structure might be. And speaking of weird things going on, bosses. Entity data added invulnerable time tag, which makes a mod temporary invulnerable for a specific number of ticks here. So this thing, it can be used by all entities. We talked about it in respects to the cushion, but I might have gotten a little bit wrong because the cushion does float in the air for far longer than it would have in this snapshot compared to previous ones. But this invulnerability tag thing, well, it is actually used by the skeleton horse trap when this thing summons in thanks to lightning. You know, a lightning bolt, they kind of have this behavior where they strike things and then accidentally injure them. With this new invulnerability tag, the skeleton horse, when this thing summons into the world, it's invulnerable for about 3 seconds, and the skeleton riders as well, meaning the lightning will not accidentally damage these mobs. Only catch here is it's been done inside of the game in a different way for a long time. A similar thing goes on with the wither inside of your world. When you summon it in, I guess not from the spawn egg, but when you summon the wither into your world, it's actually invulnerable for a little bit of time, but it doesn't actually use this invulnerability tag. With the help of this new tag, I can drop something in, and look at that, I made it invulnerable for 600 ticks. And so after 600 ticks have passed in game, then if I were in survival, I would be able to hit this thing again. On the other hand, if I'm in creative, well, this new data tag, it doesn't affect creative mode at all. I don't know, man. It's definitely not just me that is thinking. This sounds a lot like a mechanic that you'd want to have for a boss fight. You do something in your world, activate a portal, a boss comes out, it's invulnerable, so you can't spam it immediately. Well, if you were doing a mechanic like that, say for the Twisted Warden, how it seems to work in dungeons, well, we now have the exact data tag that you would need to have in-game for this exact fight. I don't know, man, only time will tell, but that new data tag definitely seems like it's something used for some kind of brand new boss. 26.3 on the surface, brand new exciting features, maybe not the most spicy, but technically, there's a lot to it. Smash a like, subscribe, and channel members, remember, there's a fancy world download of this world out right now. Thank you all for watching. On the end card is another video. Check it out, and I'll see you tomorrow. Goodbye.